Just moments ago, Israel sent a message of only 2 words to the United Kingdom, and the impact was immediate. Prime Minister Keir Starmer was left completely stunned. 2 simple words were all it took to throw Downing Street into full crisis mode and plunge the Labour government into total disarray. There was no room for diplomacy or the niceties of political language. The message was blunt, abrupt, and entirely without precedent in the recent history of relations between the 2 nations. According to sources close to Westminster, the atmosphere is one of extreme tension. Ministers have cancelled their engagements, phones are ringing non-stop, and confusion reigns within the cabinet. No one seems to know how to respond, because this wasn't just another political statement, it was a veiled warning, a threat compressed into 2 words carrying decades of history and resentment. Before we continue, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is essential for us to keep bringing you the most impactful news and in-depth analysis you won't find anywhere else. To understand the magnitude of what's happened, we need to take a step back. Since Keir Starmer officially announced the recognition of the State of Palestine, diplomatic repercussions have been escalating by the hour. Washington has reacted with anger, while Tel Aviv has shown visible outrage. And although the public statements and carefully managed interviews maintain a tone of restraint, something far darker and more dangerous is unfolding behind the scenes of international politics. British intelligence agencies had already warned the government that Israel's patience was wearing thin. Yet no one anticipated a response so swift, forceful, and brutally clear. Late at night, a private diplomatic cable arrived at the British Embassy in Tel Aviv. It contained no lengthy explanations, no calls for dialogue, just 2 words that said it all: game over. The message was immediately classified as highly sensitive and urgently relayed to London. Within minutes, the Prime Minister's office was effectively locked down. Advisors and officials crowded into number 10, Downing Street, trying to decipher the true meaning of that brief communiqué. Uncertainty swept through the government. Was it a symbolic gesture, a warning of retaliation, or a declaration that the long-standing special relationship between the UK and Israel had just ended? According to insiders, the Foreign Secretary ordered a full review of the translation, hoping there might have been some kind of misunderstanding. There wasn't. Multiple sources confirmed the exact words, game over. In diplomatic terms, it was the Israeli equivalent of slamming the door shut and making it clear that there would be no turning back. Within the Labour Party, the initial shock quickly descended into chaos. Senior ministers clashed behind closed doors, some demanding an immediate public response, while others urged Starmer to remain silent until the situation cooled down. But nothing suggests that tensions will ease anytime soon. On the contrary, the crisis appears to be worsening with every passing hour. Recent leaks indicate that Israel may be suspending its primary intelligence sharing channels with the United Kingdom, the same networks that help monitor terrorist activity across the Middle East. If confirmed, the consequences would be severe, not only a political humiliation but a full-scale national security crisis. Both MI6 and GCHQ are working to verify the reports, yet early intelligence briefings suggest that trust between London and Tel Aviv may have been irreparably damaged. Meanwhile, in Israel, local media are celebrating what they call a historic diplomatic reckoning. Political analysts in Tel Aviv have openly mocked Starmer's so-called moral superiority, accusing him of trading long-standing strategic alliances for short-term public approval. On Israeli social media, the phrase "Britain betrayed democracy" has dominated trending lists throughout the morning, underscoring the scale of the rupture between the 2 governments. Back in the UK, the tabloids are in overdrive, plastering their front pages with headlines such as "Starmer in shock," "Labour in panic," and "Special relationship destroyed." Newsrooms hardly need to exaggerate. The scandal unfolding at Downing Street seems to write itself. Yet there's an angle few dare to discuss openly. Israel's 2-word message was not meant solely for Keir Starmer. It was a symbolic warning, a coded signal to every Western leader considering whether to follow Britain's lead in recognizing the State of Palestine. A sharp reminder to think twice before crossing Tel Aviv. Behind the scenes, the British government is scrambling to contain the diplomatic fallout. Officials at the Foreign Office are in constant contact with their European counterparts, gauging reactions across the continent. In Paris, there has been cautious silence. In Berlin, growing unease. And in Washington, outright anger. Sources within the U.S. State Department claim that London had already been warned about the potential consequences. Some reports even suggest that the United States may side with Israel in upcoming trade negotiations, potentially excluding the UK from key defense contracts as punishment for what Washington views as reckless diplomacy. This entire political earthquake stemmed from a diplomatic letter of barely 300 words, answered with just 2. Yet the question now echoing through the corridors of power in Westminster is simple but alarming. What does game over really mean? Some believe it signals a diplomatic freeze, others fear a cyber retaliation, or worse, a covert intelligence operation waiting to unfold. There is also a far more unsettling theory, one that few are willing to say out loud, the possibility that this message marks the beginning of a much deeper realignment on the global geopolitical stage. According to a leaked memorandum from the Israeli cabinet, game over was not the end of a conversation, but the start of a potentially dangerous new phase. Since that message reached London, the British government has effectively entered a state of emergency. Reports suggest that Prime Minister Keir Starmer spent the night in back-to-back meetings with his top security and intelligence advisors as agency chiefs outlined a series of possible scenarios for the hours ahead, none of them encouraging. The most immediate fear within Westminster is that Israel could opt for a silent form of retaliation, one invisible to the public eye but devastating in its impact. It would not need to resort to military action to send a message. Israel's reputation for precision in cyber operations, intelligence leaks, and covert sabotage is well established across the international community. In recent hours, unconfirmed reports have emerged of irregularities detected within several UK defense communication networks. Some have dismissed them as routine technical faults, but in the aftermath of a message like game over, every glitch now feels far too deliberate to be coincidental. By dawn, the diplomatic crisis had reached an entirely new level. Israel officially announced the complete suspension of its counter-terrorism intelligence cooperation with the United Kingdom in the Middle East, a partnership that had long been vital to Britain's ability to track and disrupt extremist cells before they reached European soil. That crucial line of collaboration was severed suddenly and completely. The reaction within British intelligence circles was one of outrage. MI6 officers reportedly described the move as a betrayal disguised as strategy. Yet the most severe blow came hours later, when Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement that stunned the international press. The message was short but devastating. The United Kingdom has chosen a side. History will remember its decision. Those words alone were enough to shake global markets. The pound sterling fell sharply, Middle Eastern oil futures surged, and investors around the world began to question whether Britain was on the verge of becoming the new diplomatic pariah of the West. Inside the Labour Party, the sense of panic is becoming impossible to ignore. Insider reports suggest that a rebellion is brewing within the cabinet itself. Senior figures, including the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary, and several veterans from the shadow cabinet, are urging Keir Starmer to issue an apology or, at the very least, a public clarification to ease the tension. In simpler terms, they are asking him to backtrack before the crisis becomes irreversible. But the Prime Minister remains resolute. True to his legal background and methodical nature, Starmer believes that retreating now would project weakness and validate long-standing accusations of Western hypocrisy in foreign policy. Even so, those closest to him admit that the pressure is beginning to take its toll. His demeanor, they say, reflects the immense gravity of the moment, and he is fully aware that what is at stake goes far beyond diplomacy itself. It is nothing less than his own political survival. However, the most explosive twist of the day came with a leak that began circulating in the early hours of the morning, one that could trigger a political earthquake of unprecedented scale. Diplomatic sources confirm that Israel is allegedly preparing to declassify intelligence documents revealing supposed secret meetings between senior Labour Party officials and Palestinian representatives held prior to the official announcement recognizing the State of Palestine. If those documents prove to be genuine, the scandal would be monumental. The narrative of a moral act of conviction would collapse entirely, replaced by the image of a calculated and politically orchestrated maneuver. Headlines are already being imagined: Starmer's secret deal, the move that fooled the world. The Conservatives, from the opposition benches, have wasted no time. They are calling for an immediate investigation, describing the situation as the greatest national security crisis since the Iraq dossier controversy. Once again, The country appears to be teetering on the brink of political collapse with unpredictable international repercussions. Within the Labour Party itself, the whispers are growing louder. Doubt is spreading through the corridors of power, and one question now hangs heavily in the air. Has Keir Starmer gone too far, too fast, dragging the United Kingdom into a diplomatic abyss from which it may not recover? What began as a display of political resolve is now seen, even by some of his allies, as a reckless gamble that has unleashed a storm of global proportions. Yet, amid the political turmoil surrounding Downing Street, an unexpected shift is beginning to take shape. Israel's forceful reaction may have set in motion a chain effect that no one anticipated, a ripple of decisions across Europe that could reshape the entire geopolitical balance of the continent. While Starmer struggles to maintain control of his leadership under growing pressure, his stance on Palestine appears to have ignited a global debate that can no longer be contained. Across Europe, governments are now being forced to take a clear stand. Spain and Ireland, long sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, are reportedly accelerating their own recognition processes, hoping to seize the historic momentum opened by London. In Paris, the situation remains ambiguous. France, true to its habit of playing both sides, proceeds cautiously, though sources close to President Emmanuel Macron insist that France will not be swayed by threats or external pressure. Germany, meanwhile, watches with deepening concern, aware that a single misstep could fracture Europe's fragile unity on foreign policy. Ironically, Israel's game-over message may have achieved the opposite of what was intended. Instead of isolating Britain, it seems to have emboldened other nations to follow its lead and challenge the diplomatic status quo. Should this trend continue, the balance of power in the Middle East could collapse overnight, triggering an unprecedented reconfiguration of global alliances. Meanwhile, the Arab world is watching events unfold with meticulous attention. Major Saudi media outlets have praised what they call British courage under fire, interpreting London's stance as a gesture of independence from a traditional global powers. In an unexpected move, the United Arab Emirates announced a joint investment with the United Kingdom worth more than £5 billion in green energy projects, precisely at the height of this diplomatic standoff. For many analysts, this is no coincidence, but rather a clear signal that some Gulf nations see in Britain's new foreign policy an opportunity to reshape the global balance of power and distance themselves from the influence of Washington and Brussels. This shifting dynamic has turned the crisis into a high-stakes geopolitical game. Every move counts, and the stakes are measured not only in diplomacy but in oil, defense contracts, intelligence systems, and the control of strategic resources. Israel's hardline response has escalated tensions to their highest level, placing the United Kingdom in a position that is both defiant and dangerous on the world stage. Domestically, the situation is no less volatile. British public opinion is shifting almost in real time. Social media has become an ideological battleground where opposing trends coexist, reflecting a nation deeply divided. For some, the Prime Minister has shown historic courage by acting independently. For others, he has committed an act of diplomatic arrogance that could come at a heavy cost. Despite this polarization, the data tells a compelling story. A poll released this morning shows that 61% of Britons believe the government should not apologize to Israel, a 3-point increase since the start of the crisis. The change may be small, but it is significant. It suggests that a growing portion of the electorate sees in this confrontation an opportunity for the United Kingdom to reclaim its own voice on the global stage, free from the shadow of the United States. And yet, beneath the surface of public debate, a far more unsettling concern is emerging. Various unconfirmed reports suggest that Israel's two-word message may not have been merely rhetorical. Intelligence insiders believe it could have been a coded warning, a prelude to deeper measures that go beyond diplomacy or symbolic communication. No one knows for sure, but what is clear is that the global chessboard has shifted, and for the first time in decades, the United Kingdom finds itself at the center of a game where every decision could redefine the future of the world's balance of power. The question now is unavoidable. Do you believe Israel's message marks the beginning of a new diplomatic era for the United Kingdom, or do you think Keir Starmer has pushed the country too far in his pursuit of political independence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay informed about how this international crisis unfolds and the impact it could have on Europe and the Middle East, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming reports. See you in the next update.